Good morning, DGiT fam. Adam Doud here, and we recorded our IFA cast over on the Android Authority podcast, and as promised, I'm reposting that podcast to this feed. It's me, David Imel, and Jimmy Westenberg, both of whom you met back in August. David told you about the Note 10, and Jimmy updated you on the Android rebrand. And as a bonus, there's a clip of the DGiT Daily in here, so this is like DGitception or something. So, without further ado, here's the Android Authority podcast discussing all the devices that launched at IFA this week. IFA is here, and despite the fact that it literally just started yesterday, we've already got an avalanche of news coming out of Berlin. And who better to talk about what's going on than our Android Authority team on the ground? So we've got them, and we're going to tell you what's what here on the Android Authority podcast. This is the weekly podcast where we look at all the top stories from the past 7 days and drill down into the details. But this is a featured story where we take a deep dive into a single topic that you care about. Today's topics, the International Funkausstellung nach Berlin, Deutschland. And I'm only half positive that I said that even close to right. And joining us is part of our team on the ground, and I'll be honest, if I were in the same room as these guys, I'd be pretty intimidated. That's how much awesome you're in for here. So without further ado, we have David Imel and Jimmy Westenberg making his podcast debut here on episode number 97. Jimmy, how you doing today?
Hello. I'm good. I'm a little sick. I should warn you guys that, you know how you always hear people get sick after all these trade shows? I'm the jerk that brings the sickness to the trade shows.
Yes, thank you. And thanks for the sound effect there, David. David, how's it going there?
Good. I got over being sick the day before the trade show started, but I'm ready to be sick again after we leave.
Hell yeah.
Excellent. Now, it is late in the day over in Berlin. It is early morning here in Chicago, so there is a better than average chance that one of us is not wearing pants. So, without further ado, let's dive in. So, I want to start off, guys. This is going to be kind of like a podcast review format, but we're also going to be like shotgunning through like a crap ton of stuff that's been going on there. So I just want to start off with like overall impressions of the show. Did it meet your expectations? Did it exceed your expectations? Did it fall short?
I think it was better than last year. Last year was pretty slim pickings. Like we had the Sony Xperia XZ3. We had like the Kirin 980, but other than that, like there wasn't a ton last year. We got like an LG phone, but this year was kind of more varied. Like it wasn't that many phones per se, but there was like a lot of just cool stuff. It was definitely better than CES. So
okay. Well, CES, that's a pretty low bar. Let's be honest. But all right, Jimmy, how about you? Any impressions that you would like to share about the whole show in general?
Yeah, I mean, I think
24 hours of it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, our work is actually almost done here. We're leaving in a couple days. But I think out of most of the companies that we went to see, most of the major players actually kind of brought their A game. Like I was really impressed with a lot of the products we saw. I was also very unimpressed with a couple companies, but we can get to that in a little bit.
Ooh, foreshadowing. I like it. That's what we call that in the biz. Good. Awesome. All right. So let's just, I'm looking at this list of like everything that we have to talk about here. So I just want to like get into it and let's get down to brass tacks. And I think we're going to start off with arguably one of the stars of the show, the LG G8X. Now, I know one of you saw that phone and went hands-on with that. Was that David?
it was both of us.
It was both of you. Okay. So
G8X.
Let's talk about that. G8X. Did I say that wrong?
Yeah, you said G8X.
I did say that wrong. Yay for bad scripting. Okay, so the LG G8X. Thank you for that. So, yeah, let's talk about this. We've got a flagship from LG with sporting a dual screen accessory. Now, one thing I wanted to clarify, because we talked about this a little bit on the last podcast, that accessory, that dual screen accessory, does not come in the box.
It does.
Is that right?
It does come in.
It does?
Well,
it comes in the box?
It's not in the box, but it comes bundled with like almost everywhere that you buy it at. But it's up to the retailer.
Wow, that's awesome.
So that's the thing, right? Like the G8X seems like a very good phone so far. It's, I reviewed the LG G8 for Android Authority, and I really liked it. I thought it was way overpriced, but it was all in all a very good phone. And this is essentially the same thing with only a few tweaks. And the second, I think LG's calling it the dual screen, just like that was bundled with the LG V50 earlier this year. And yeah, when we asked LG at our pre-briefing about the where exactly the second screen would be, or the dual screen would be available in, they didn't really tell us. I mean, they basically said it's up to all the carriers and retail partners if they want to carry it or not. But the thing is that their whole presentation revolved around the dual screen.
Yeah, the entire thing.
And so they didn't really give us a reason to buy the G8X over the regular G8 that came out earlier this year, unless you want that dual screen. So I think that's kind of a problem that they're going to be running into in the future.
Interesting. And the dual screen on the G8X actually uses the USB-C interface as opposed to like the pogo pins on the back of the V50.
Yeah, I think the pogo pins were better, but it does use USB-C. It's really hard to get the phone in the case because it's like a pretty stiff case, and it's got a USB-C port that is pointing upwards. So like you feel like you're gonna break the USB-C port thing.
Yeah.
Every time you put it in.
I definitely feel that. I definitely feel. Yeah, and this is not the first case that's ever used a USB-C port like built into it. So
but the fact that it's just so like
cases that have done
it's so tough. It's so like stiff. If it was more flexible and TPU like, I think it would be fine. But it's pretty hard to get in.
That's what she said. Anyway, all right, cool. So,
Adam, you use the V50 with the dual screen, is that right?
I have, yes, that's correct.
How did you like that?
I have questions about the implementation of it, and I'm not sure if the LG G8X is any different. I'm inclined to think it's probably similar, but for me, it's not really necessarily an automatic win, just because like the second screen utility is nice, but I just think the implementation of it is not all that great. Not to mention the dual screen that I have doesn't have that. I don't know what you call it, but the front display, like the mini display that kind of like shows notifications and the time and stuff like that. Mine doesn't have that. And I'm not sure why, and it's very possible that I just haven't figured out how to turn it on yet. I'm very open to that possibility. But anyway, so yeah, it's a little bit different, and I think it looks like the LG G8X hits a couple more points, like checks a couple more boxes that I would ask for, but still. At the end of the day, when you have this case open, you can't use the fingerprint sensor, and that bugs me. That bugs me a lot.
Yeah, this one has an in-screen fingerprint reader.
Oh, okay. Well, see, yeah, that's a big step up then. So, like, I'm probably 80% more on board with that than in that particular case.
Yeah, for sure. And one thing to note about, like, while we're talking about biometrics is that, so during our briefing, we were not able to register our fingerprints, so we couldn't test that out and see, how fast it is, or how accurate it is. And one of the big changes, I guess it's a big change if you want to call it that, but between the G8X and the regular G8 is that LG removed the facial recognition, the extra
vein recognition.
They removed all of that from the front camera, so now there's just a single front-facing camera on the front, no TOF sensor.
Yeah.
Right.
So basically your only way to get into the phone is the traditional PIN pattern password way, or the in-screen fingerprint sensor.
Gotcha. Okay. I mean, and I'll be honest, the facial recognition on the LG V50 is kind of terrible. So I don't think that's necessarily a huge loss, but anyway, so I would love to spend the next 20 minutes talking about the LG G8X, but we just can't do that because there's just too much news going on here. But I think what we can do is we can transition over and talk about some of the phones that the LG G8X may be targeting, and that could be the Samsung Galaxy Fold and the Huawei Mate X. And I understand that we have spent some significant time with both of those devices. Is that right?
Yes. So I already went hands-on with the Galaxy Fold like way back when they were giving it out to reviewers to spend some time with. Right. But that was before the breaking stuff started happening.
Actually, if I remember correctly, that was during the breaking.
It was actually, during. It was during. That's why I have like a vlog for my hands-on. But they took a few of us into a back room, and we got to spend about an hour with the new fixed version. And a couple of months ago, or like a month ago, they put out a blog post saying what was going to be fixed to make it better. And that's a few things. They moved the that top layer that looks like a screen protector. They extended it below the bezel, so now it just looks like a screen. Like you can't even notice that it's not a screen. It just looks like a screen, which is cool. It looks way better that way. Way better that way. And then they
should have done that in the first place. Way better, but anyway.
They also put caps on the top and bottom of the phone to kind of where the hinge is, to kind of stop dust from getting in between the hinge there. And then they also reduced the space between the hinge and the sides of the phone because dust was also getting in the sides. And overall, it just felt better put together. It felt sturdier. It felt more complete. But man, every time I use that phone, it's like the most premium, crazy, awesome experience. I really, really like that phone. Yeah.
And I definitely want to talk about the phone, but one unanswered question, because we actually talked about the Fold a little bit on the last podcast. One unanswered question that we had was that premium service that Samsung is, I'm going to use air quotes here, but shipping with the Galaxy Fold. That is something that's just coming along with the Fold. Like, hey, you bought this $2,000 phone, we're going to help you out with it now. That doesn't have any additional monthly cost or anything.
No, it's just a premium service plan because they're trying to make sure that people don't feel weird about buying the phone.
Okay.
Because of the first thing that happened.
Yeah, we figured that, but just the way the announcement was worded, it seemed like maybe. But anyway, all right. So we're gonna put so we're gonna put the premium service in the rearview mirror. I'm glad you answered that question. So let's talk about the Fold itself. Now, the improvements that were added to the Galaxy Fold. Do you feel, obviously, as the structural engineer that you are, do you feel like that's going to adequately address the issues that the original Galaxy Fold had?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
What's funny is it's the reviewers that found all the issues, and it's very funny because they're were different problems that were happening. There was someone who, a few people ripped off their displays because they thought that it was a screen protector, so that was addressed. There were people who had dust getting into the hinge mechanism in the top, and so that was addressed with the caps. And then there were people who had dust getting in the hinge mechanism in between the hinge and the glass part, and they narrowed that, so that was addressed. So at least everything that was going wrong with reviewers was addressed. So I'm pretty sure that it's fine.
Okay, so I have a very dumb question. I've never used the Galaxy Fold, and that was a statement. But here's my question: so the fact that you mentioned caps and decreased space in between the creases, I guess, that kind of worries me, because if it seems to me is there any space that dust could get in and still mess things up?
Not really. I mean, the caps cover the areas that were previously open, but it is kind of thin plastic, and they just kind of added it on there.
Okay.
So there's a possibility that those could break off and then it would be exposed again. But I think that's why they're offering the service plan.
Okay.
Yeah. It seems like, maybe it's not going to be 100% foolproof, but even if it's like 95% foolproof, that's still going to address a lot of the issues that Galaxy Fold reviewers had initially. So, I mean, if we can stop most of it, I in my world, I think that's going to address it, because in the previous iteration of the Galaxy Fold, man, that thing was like open for business. Like you could drive a car through those gaps. And so it's like just adding the little cap, even if it only deflects. I think my biggest concern is like pocket lint. Because
it's so like
pocket
small
lint
and
gets
sneaky.
everywhere.
Yeah, I know.
And these are phones, so they're going to be in pockets. So
I hate sand. It's coarse and it gets everywhere.
Oh God, don't no. You were that is your one Star Wars prequels reference that you were allowed on this podcast.
Hey, we got Jimmy on the podcast, dude. What are you gonna do?
There will be more to come. I promise.
Oh man. All right, cool. No. Anyway, all right. So that's your one Anakin reference. That's well. You're allowed to do that if you want to quote, Padme later on. Then
I have the high ground, Adam.
I'm not so sure about that, but anyway, let's move on. So we were able to go hands-on with the mysterious Huawei Mate X, and we spent some significant time and made a pretty significant video about that. So let's talk about the Huawei Mate X if we can.
Yeah.
So what are your overall impressions here?
So, okay, what's interesting about the Mate X versus the Galaxy Fold is that they're just so distinctly different. Like, they're both foldable phones, but the Mate X folds outwards, which is to say that, like, the screen kind of, like, folds around itself. So it's not really protected, which is kind of something that makes me nervous. And Huawei the unit they gave me had a screen protector on it, and we were like, is this, like, the same kind of deal as the Fold? And they were like, oh, no, it's not. It's just a screen protector, but you should probably still keep it on. And that's because they're plastic OLED displays, and plastic tends to scar and get scratched really easily. So that's what makes me nervous, right? Because the outside of the phone is just going to be put in your pocket. Now, they gave it to me in this really nice leather case that looks exactly like a glasses case. And I think they expect people to just keep it in there, and that fits in your pocket. So it's like, I would actually keep it in that because it's so freaking nice.
Right. Oh, yeah.
But in terms of general usability, I really like the Mate X a lot. I don't know if I like it more than the Fold, just because it feels a little less, like, quote-unquote premium, because you're holding the plastic OLED, really. You're not really holding, like, this metal and glass contraption.
Okay.
But I really, really love that you can use it like a normal phone when it's closed. Because when it's closed, you still have this huge, like, 6.8-inch display. And then it opens up to an 8-inch display. So it's still pretty big, but then it opens up and it's like this 1x1 square. And so, like, the aspect ratio when you open it up is kind of weird, but just having the ability to do that is awesome. And I really like both the hinge mechanism and this little side piece that has the cameras built into it, but it's also got, like, a hand grip on it. It just feels very cool. Like, it feels like very complete, and if the plastic OLED isn't a problem, it feels like just a big, cool phone that can open up into a bigger, cooler phone.
Nice.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this: what about is there a fold gap, or does it fold flat?
It does not fold flat, but it's pretty close. Like, it's got like a hinge lock that you have to press a button to unlock it. It's mostly flat. It's not so bad that you would notice it and dislike it. Yeah, it's not like the Surface Book. Yeah.
Gotcha. And that, or the Galaxy Fold.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But what's interesting though is, like, they can't put Google Play services on it. But there was a roundtable session after the Huawei keynote, and they basically said, yeah, we can't put Play services on it, but in the same way that Oppo and Vivo just put the Google Play Store as an app on, like, the Oppo App Store, we're working with a third party to make it so you should be able to easily add the Google Play Store So even though Huawei is banned from using Google services, if they include a third-party app that lets you download Google Play services, that technically doesn't breach that thing.
Yeah, it sounds
like loopholes.
Right. It sounds like everything right now is kind of just a work in progress.
Yeah.
And they're absolutely not ready to announce anything or have any protocols in order for people to get Google services on their phones. But it sounds like they understand the situation. They know that shipping this phone without Google services in many parts of the world would be detrimental.
Especially Europe, where they gave the pricing.
A non-starter.
Yeah. So it sounds like they're working hard to make up for all of the US's troubles with Huawei right now.
Yeah. They also said that they could have shipped it last month if they felt like it, but they want to make sure that the app continuity is there. So they're working with the developers that are going to be on the phone to make sure their apps have app continuity, which for new listeners is basically when you have your phone folded, using it as a normal phone, and then unfolding it and have that app scale and transform correctly so that it feels like it's a tablet app.
Okay.
And that's, the most depressing
app on Android?
So the most depressing part of all of this is that Android 10 has native support for app continuity and
the Mate X can't use it.
Exactly. Like it was so close but so far, considering Android 10 literally just came out and like the timing was just horrible.
So Android 10 has native fold support, and half the folding phones in the world can't use it.
Yeah,
right. And that
actually, technically 1/3, but anyway.
Right. I mean that will affect maybe future versions of Android and Huawei's development with it, right? But since Android's open source, Huawei can still use major versions of Android, just maybe not use the APIs and everything that Google is putting into it for foldable support. And so, and this is kind of this has always been the case with third-party OEMs, right? Like if Google's behind on adding something to Android, a third party will come in and develop that feature, put it in their phone, and then every once in a while Google adopts the feature in a new version of Android. So like we saw even way back when with Samsung and multitasking, they were the first ones to do it, or split screen on their Note phones. So this is just kind of a Huawei has already developed a very good foldable version of Android for the Mate X. It's just what are future versions of that going to look like? We don't really know.
Right. Okay. All right. So if you had to buy one today, you buying a Fold or you buying a Mate X, assuming that you can have Google Play installed?
I'd buy a Mate X.
Same.
I think it's... Yeah? The problem with the Fold is that the screen on the front is so freaking tiny that it's like almost unusable when you're not using it unfolded. And...
I have the same issues with that.
Yeah, it encourages you to use it unfolded, which is like, sure, cool, but like the Mate X looks like a normal phone when it's folded. And like you don't always want a giant screen. I really love the idea of like you're on the bus or you're getting on the bus, and so you're like, using your Fold, you get on the bus, you sit down, or the train or whatever, and you unfold it to like watch a movie or watch a YouTube video or read a book. I really, really like that. I do kind of wish it folded the other way so that it could be like you're reading an actual book because the pages would be slightly curved, but that's just me. Okay. I think the Mate X is just cooler in general.
Okay.
And the hinge that you hold is really, really comfortable. So
nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're all looking forward to full reviews of both of those devices.
Yeah. So one other thing is that they said that they might launch it within the next month.
Okay.
And so that's kind of a big might, but like, if they do, like we're going to import one even if they don't send us one. So.
Right. Well, I can't wait to get our full review on Harmony OS. That'll be great. I'm just kidding. Anyway. So we kind of drifted away from Samsung, but let's drift back here real quick. We've got the Samsung Galaxy A90. This is an affordable flagship. So you've gone hands-on with this, so tell me a little bit about it.
It's quote-unquote affordable. I think it's still like it's still like $800.
Well, you know,
yeah, it's
totally affordable.
Affordable 5G phone.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, it's like pretty much the same specs as like a Note.
Okay.
Which is cool. It's as the Note 10 because it's got this like big 6.7-inch display. I gotta say the thing I took away from the hands-on was that the build materials are insane. Like it feels like it was carved out of a solid piece of aluminum.
Okay.
And it's supposed to kind of look like that. It's got this kind of cool two-tone thing. But yeah, it's got a 4,500 milliamp hour battery. It's got 25 watt fast charging, which was a new feature in the Note 10. It's got 5G support. It's got a triple camera system with the 48 megapixel f2 lens. It's got a wide and a standard and a telephoto. Like it's pretty much a 5G Note 10 in a different form factor and without the S Pen. Like it's very interesting.
Okay. Also with a full HD screen as opposed to like a
FHD plus.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so same as essentially the same as the regular Galaxy Note 10, is that right?
Yeah, so it's 1080. It's 1080, which is like sure, but like 1080 with 4,500 milliamp hours too is like this is what bugged me was that the Note 10 Plus only has a 40. Trying to remember.
The Note 10 Plus, I want to say is 4,300.
I think it's 4,300 milliamp hours, and this has 4,500. So
okay.
yeah.
So what's up with that?
I know, yeah.
So
and 5G.
One thing that our article mentioned, weren't able to pin this down. Headphone jack? Yes, no?
No.
Ooh.
No, there is no headphone jack. Okay. All right. Samsung, damn it. Anyway. All right. So,
it's
like, just overall
man.
impressions of the phone. Build quality is impressive. The battery size is impressive. Screen looks good. It's
build
OLED,
quality
right?
is like really impressive. Screen looks actually really, really good.
Okay.
Yeah, it just looks great. I mean, I think the only thing you're really like not getting is that you have to use a notch for the front-facing camera instead of an infinity display.
The Infinity O display.
But like it's not that big of a deal and it's very clean and awesome looking. So
it's
I'm
as
okay
big of a
with
deal
it.
as it is on any other notched phone.
Pretty much, which is to say not much.
Right.
Yeah.
So what else can we say about this phone? I mean, it's so they're talking about a 5G smartphone for $740, which is, as far as I know, the lowest priced 5G phone yet.
I think the OnePlus 7 Pro 5G is about that price as well.
What about the Xiaomi Mi Mix 3 5G?
Yeah, that's like $450 or something.
But let's talk about launch markets for the A90 5G. Where's this one launching? Let's see. It's confirmed. It was just confirmed for European availability.
Yeah.
So we're not going to see this in the U.S. If
they
I remember
told us
correctly,
they don't have
this
anything
one
to
does
share
not.
about that. Yeah.
This one doesn't support millimeter wave tech. Is that right? I remember that from the DGiT Daily. I think I'm not sure if
that is possible. I didn't get a briefing on it.
Good.
That's much too early. Prepare to fast forward.
Preparing to fast forward.
Fast forward.
Fast forwarding, sir.
One thing our team on the ground was able to uncover was that the A90 does not support millimeter wave 5G, which means Sprint would be the only option if it did come here. And frankly, I'm totally fine with that. That was my part on the end, but
Okay.
Yeah. So the lack of millimeter wave technology is going to be,
You know why?
is going
It's
to
probably
hamper
because I think
U.S.
this thing is.
distribution.
I think it's because this is metal. I think this is a metal phone.
Oh, that could do it. Yeah, because millimeter wave
it,
tech would not play well with that.
Literally, it felt like metal, and it feels like it's like carved out of a single solid piece. And millimeter wave can't pierce metal, so
or anything for that matter. But
get
mostly metal.
Like two layers into skin, but not all the way through.
Right. Yeah. So okay, all right. So I mean, that would definitely hamper a U.S. launch. But from what I understand, the rest of the world is more focused on sub-6 technology. So it almost seems like millimeter wave is like the new CDMA. That might be a gross over generalization, but still.
Yeah, I don't know. I think millimeter wave is like only for dense cities, basically.
Yeah.
And that's why, yeah.
So this is a country boy phone. I'm just kidding. Anyway, all right. So now do we have this one in house? Have we had a chance to use the phone like with any amount of?
I got to use it for like 10 minutes.
Okay, so no. All right.
No, we don't. We don't have a review unit though.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, still, that's it's good that we've gone hands on with it anyway. So I've got one more phone that I want to talk about, and then we're going to really start picking Jimmy's brain. The TCL Plex is a TCL branded phone from the same company that brings you all the Alcatel phones, all the BlackBerry phones,
and television.
Do they have any other manufacturers that I'm forgetting?
No.
Or do they have any other brands?
I think those are the two.
Okay, so Tristan seemed fairly impressed with the TCL Plex. What can you guys tell me about it? I mean, it's a mid-range phone, obviously, but
yeah. So I think the whole idea of it is, don't get me wrong. This is an impressive first attempt at a good kind of mid-range flagship phone. But I think the idea of TCL becoming an actual phone brand instead of just being the brand behind other popular brands, I like that idea more than I like the phone, I think. Not that the phone is bad. It's actually really nice. So for those who haven't seen it yet, there is on the back, it kind of looks like a Huawei Mate 10 Pro. It kind of has a triple camera setup with like a ribbon that goes through it, and it's really, really nicely designed with a rear fingerprint sensor.
Like a Mate 10 Pro.
Yeah, it does. Which it's good because that's a nice looking phone.
Yeah.
And on the front it has a big old display, 6.53 inch display, and I think the thing to point out here is that usually when you buy a budget phone, unless you're buying from Samsung or something, you kind of have to. It's a crapshoot for the display, right? Like a lot of a lot of the mid-range phones, you might not get a good one. But TCL is in the display business, very much so, and this panel that they put on the phone is actually really nice. Like I said, very big, 6.5 inches. It's an LCD. And it is it's plenty bright, has great viewing angles, and I mean my overall first impressions of the phone are very positive. Now I know that phones with the Snapdragon 675 processor in other regions are much less expensive than this. It's going for €329 in Europe, but even so, I'm not quite sure of the mid-range segment in Europe right now in terms of that processor, but it does really seem like a good first effort on TCL's part. Okay.
So I mean, like, just my overall impressions of it are it definitely looks like a Gen 1 product, just with the the squared off fingerprint sensor on the back, and it looks like the lighter version. I'm not sure what they're calling the colors, but the whiter version that like is on the hero image up towards the top. I'm less impressed with that than I am with the darker finish on the phone.
Same,
but yeah, it also looks the whiter version actually looks kind of more shimmery. I want to say that's what was the was it a I think it was a Huawei phone that had like a kind of a shimmery back to it.
Yeah, I think in our briefing, TCL referred to it as a ribbon effect or something, and it kind of does. There are a couple of photos that we have on the website that we have it photographed in direct light with a light right overhead, and you can kind of see like a very
unique
vertically
pattern.
oriented curve that goes from the top to the bottom of the phone, and it's really pretty. When you see it in person, it definitely has a different effect, compared to just looking at images of it.
Neat. So in terms of and the Snapdragon 675, that's not a inconsequential processor. That's got a little bit of zip to it. And one of the nice things about living in 2019 is even the mid-range phones are still fairly powerful.
Right.
So that's good. And there's 6 gigs of RAM on board, so that's not going to be a problem. And so just overall, it looks like I'm going to agree with you. Just from a 3,000 miles away standpoint, it looks like a real solid first effort.
Yeah. So, I can't wait to see what the market thinks about it. It's like I said, it's a solid first effort, but the real thing is, the exciting thing is TCL, putting its best foot forward and trying to be a relevant name, which it is in the TV space. So why can't it be in the smartphone space? Did TCL mention why it decided to go ahead and just start putting its own branding on phones as opposed to defaulting back to the Alcatel brand? Because this kind of feels like it could easily be an Alcatel type phone. So I'm just kind of curious, did TCL address why they decided to tackle the market themselves? I think so. From what I understood from the briefing, is that they've been wanting to do this for years, and they feel that now is the right time to do so. And it's just something that they've always wanted to do. They, from what I understand, obviously BlackBerry is the kind of business premium brand. Alcatel is the lower end, more affordable brand, and TCL, from what I, have gathered so far, is trying to be kind of somewhere in the middle. They're not obviously not trying to compete with the Galaxy S10s of the world, but it just seems like now is the right time. BlackBerry is kind of in between announcements right now, and Alcatel usually has a ton of phone announcements at every trade show. So it's just kind of seemed like the right time, I guess.
Cool. All right. So we're just kind of going to move right along here. Now, Jimmy is kind of our resident wearables expert, and actually, I kind of misspoke at the beginning when I said that Jimmy was making his podcast debut. He has actually provided a recording or two for us in the past, but this is the first time he's actually speaking with me back and forth, so that's fun. So what's your overall... Now, it seems like there were a whole lot of wearables dropping at IFA. So maybe you can kind of give me like a roundup of like your favorite ones that you've seen thus far.
Yeah, so Garmin and Fossil both launched a ton of watches at IFA, and they normally unveil a handful of watches at a time, and they both had pretty big announcements this week. So just starting off with Garmin, if you're not familiar with Garmin watches, they make very good GPS running watches. So if you're into fitness at all, and you also want to own a smartwatch, and you want a good watch that kind of handles both areas, Garmin is a great option. They launched their very first OLED screen watch. They launched a refresh to their most popular GPS running watch. They launched a Captain Marvel and Captain America edition of a couple of their watches, and a refresh to their hybrid smartwatches as well. Cool. They had a ton to show off.
So now I've always felt that Garmin, and maybe you can correct me here, I've always felt that Garmin was like the expensive option in the area of fitness smartwatches. Is that accurate?
Yeah, absolutely. But they are the best as well. That's the thing. If I think a lot of people, when it comes to looking at smartwatch prices, and especially in the smartwatch world, when they look at prices, it's much more than, you're getting much more than just the smartwatch. You're getting app support, you're getting services in the background, right? So, half of the reason you own a fitness tracker is because you want to pay attention to your fitness and activity. And so how do you do that? You use, the app that comes with your fitness tracker or smartwatch. So Garmin happens to have a very, very good Garmin Connect app. It's a little confusing to get used to, but after that, it's actually a really good app. And they offer training plans, mostly for free. I believe if you buy a Garmin watch, you get training plans for free. So I mean, you do have to pay a little bit more than you would for, something from another company, but you're getting a lot for your money.
Okay. Yeah. Now, does Garmin run Wear OS, or do they have their own proprietary operating system, or how does that work?
Yeah, they have their own proprietary operating system. It's definitely not as smart as a Wear OS watch. So you don't get a voice assistant. You don't get. You do have third-party app support, but the support is hit or miss. Some companies decide to build for Garmin watches, some don't. That's kind of the on-device software is really the area where these smartwatches lag behind. But if you kind of just need something that will handle your notifications and let you listen to music and stuff, I think they're great options for those types of simple smartwatch things. Nice. Yeah.
I mean, I'll be honest, I have a smart assistant on my Wear OS watch, and I never use it just because I don't know. I always have problems with connectivity for whatever reason, but anyway. All right, so of the watches, and I'm scrolling down this post here, and it's like we've got 10 watches on this post. Of the watches that Garmin released at IFA, which is your favorite and why?
I am actually liking the refresh to the Garmin Vivo Move line. So these are the hybrid watches, and Garmin does these really well. So hybrid watches are analog watches. They're just, traditional looking watches. But Garmin made a display that kind of hides in the background when you don't need it. So, when you don't have any notifications or your heart rate isn't showing up or something like that, it's just completely blank. It looks like a normal watch. But with these new watches, they put two hidden displays, like one on the top and one on the bottom of the watch face. And it shows up to show you notifications and any text messages and whatnot. And they also improved them by adding in Garmin Pay support and new sensors. And it really seems like a good refresh, and I really like these watches.
That looks slick. I'm actually looking at the Garmin Vivo Move Lux right now, and that does look slick. I have to really appreciate that. I kind of wonder if there's a place for e-ink on hybrid smartwatches. Maybe, I don't know. Something to think about, I guess. But okay, great. Now you mentioned another company. You talked about Garmin, and you talked about another company that is not on my rundown. And I can't remember.
Fossil.
Fossil, that's the one. What's Fossil got going on?
Okay, so a couple of weeks ago, Fossil launched its new flagship Wear OS watch. It's just called the Fossil Gen 5 smartwatch, and a
lot of thought went into that name.
Right, generic as hell. I reviewed it already, and you can check it out on AndroidAuthority.com. And they had it on display at IFA, so I guess it's technically an IFA device as well. But Fossil owns a ton of brands, and they partner with a lot of brands too. So if a brand like Puma, for instance, wants to launch a smartwatch, Fossil will do that for them. So that's exactly what happened. So we have watches from fashion companies like Michael Kors. We have the very first Puma smartwatch. We have a new Diesel watch, Emporio Armani, and I think that's it from this show as well. Also the Misfit Vapor X, that also launched a couple weeks ago too. Basically they just launched a ton.
Gotcha. So, I mean, I don't know about you, But whenever I sit down in the morning and pull on my Pumas, I think to myself, man, if only I had a smartwatch to go with it. But that problem is solved now. That's excellent news. That's excellent news.
We think alike. That's exactly how I feel.
I know. All right. Cool. So anything else in the wearable industry that we should talk about before we start to kind of sort of talk about stuff that we haven't actually seen?
I do want to bring up one more thing, and it's the Withings Move ECG. So this is something that I reviewed for this week. The embargo broke this week at IFA. Basically, they announced this hybrid watch back at CES, and we went hands-on with it then. And I reviewed it for its European availability just a couple days ago. So basically, this is one of the only watches that you can buy with a built-in electrocardiogram. So if you have heart issues like AFib or anything, heart palpitations, or your doctor just says keep an eye on your heart rate, this is a very good and affordable thing that you can buy to kind of keep an eye on that. Not saying that this is absolutely not a replacement for going to the doctor or getting an actual test done by a physician. But it's $150, $130 or something like that.
Nice.
And yeah, the market is very limited for wrist-based ECGs right now. So yeah, it's a cool product and definitely worth checking out.
Now, is there any type of notifications or any smartwatch functionality here, or is it just obviously it connects to an app for the ECG, but is there anything like notifications or anything like that you can get?
So other Withings watches do support smartphone notifications and stuff, but yeah, for this one it's just silent alarms, and it tracks your activity, and I believe it has connected GPS too. So if you want to go on a run and bring your phone, you can track it accurately. Okay. So this one's very much more a fitness device than a smartwatch, but still worth bringing up.
But still, just having the ECG available on your wrist, so on a watch that doesn't have an Apple sticker on it, is pretty huge. So that's pretty awesome. So great. So let's move on to now. We've got Jimmy and David on the podcast, and God bless them for taking time out of a trade show schedule to sit down with me. But obviously we have a whole team on the ground at IFA, and so because of that, David and Jimmy haven't seen everything, but we've gotten some impressions about some other devices that have come out, so I just want to take a few minutes to talk about some of those devices, and we're going to start off with the Sony Xperia V, if we could. Now, what kind of impressions are you getting from the show floor in terms of the Sony Xperia V? Eric Zeman is the one who went hands-on with it. But what do you guys? How are you guys feeling about this phone there?
I really like the form factor, and it's very pretty, and it's kind of like a Xperia 1 Lite, I guess.
Okay.
I think what they should have called it is Sony Xperia 1 Compact. That would have been a better name.
That would be in line with their branding.
What was weird about this phone is that they didn't tell anybody about it, and they didn't give us any briefings or anything. So we just kept hearing rumors, and then it just suddenly dropped at their press conference.
Okay.
So it's kind of weird. It's like a flagship for sure, but it's I think $800 or $750. 800.
That's a
800.
very, very 800. Tall price tag.
Yeah, so it's kind of it's pretty expensive for the fact that it's supposed to be the lighter version of the flagship phone. Mm-hmm. It looks good, and if you want another 21x9 phone, that you want something smaller than Xperia 1, but more powerful than the Xperia 10, I think that's where this is supposed to sit. That's why it's 1,510, I think. It's in between.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
So it looks like a smaller Hershey bar. That's good. So have we had a chance to play with anything like cameras, performance? You said it's a flagship. No. It's got the 855, and I didn't see a number on the RAM offhand. but it seems...
don't know that offhand either.
Our article just says loads of RAM, so I wasn't sure if we had any actual numbers. But like you said, we didn't get pre-briefed on this, so...
Yeah.
It's probably the same as the Xperia 1, right?
Probably. It's got a smaller battery, but yeah. I don't know. I think they're really attractive phones. Mm-hmm. I'm interested in how a 21:9 display in a more compact form factor would feel.
Yeah, I can see that.
So I'm interested in trying it out. I'm definitely interested in trying it out.
Cool. All right, and I'm sure you will. Do you guys have any thoughts about the Nokia stuff?
Eric says that it is, for what you get, it's a really good value. Like, it looks really premium. I mean, the Nokia 7.1 last year was like one of the nicest looking affordable phones. And this kind of continues that heritage a little bit. I'm not super hot on the camera array. I think that everyone's trying to get like circular or square cameras right now for some reason. I don't really know why.
This one's very Motorola-esque.
Yeah, it's very Moto-esque, but it looks nicer because it's flat and looks like it has glass.
And I think
also some Nokia on the bezel, which is a very Motorola thing.
The design should be hit on again too, because it's made of polycarbonate and it doesn't look like it at all. And apparently Eric says it doesn't feel like it at all. It really feels like super premium and glass and metal, but no, it's just somehow
that's awesome.
Somehow HMD just kind of made it the most kind of premium feeling plastic it could.
That's really cool.
I don't know about you guys, but I want to slap a mod onto the back of that thing.
It looks like it has room, yeah.
Give me that JBL
I mean, it looks like you're right. This design is straight out of Motorola's playbook. So that's
yeah.
All right, cool. Well, you know what? I mean, we've talked about a bunch. I mean, and like I said, we couldn't get the whole team because trade shows be crazy. So that's fine. I'm sure we will do a podcast review on at least 2 of those devices, if not all of them. So we'll definitely have time to get our impressions. Watch AndroidAuthority.com for our reviews and our impressions on on this device and all of the others. So I think with that, do you have any final thoughts on IFA, on the trade show in general? How much longer are you guys going to be in Berlin?
We are in Berlin for another, I don't know, day and a half, a little more than a day or so. We leave Monday morning.
Okay.
Yeah. We've so I guess that puts us at about a week of being here. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. This is my first time in Berlin, and I've really enjoyed it so far. I'm not super crazy about the food, but the beer is good, and the
lots of Wiener Schnitzel and
right.
sauerkraut.
Perfect for a vegetarian. Yes. But yeah, it's a very, very beautiful city and very diverse, and I can't wait to come back.
Cool. How about you, David? I mean, you're a world traveler, so
yeah,
obviously you know all about Berlin.
I mean, I've been here before, but I'm liking it more than the last time I was here. The weather's nicer. It's just been very, very nice.
All right, cool. Well, guys, I appreciate your time. I'm going to let you go so that you can go out and do karaoke or whatever it is you guys do in Berlin when you're not on the clock, as if you're ever not on the clock. But that's going to do it for this episode of the Android Authority Podcast. And this podcast was produced by me. And if you like what you heard, please be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Reviews are so important, and they will help make podcasts like this possible. And now that you've heard from us, it is your turn. Head on over to AndroidAuthority.com/podcast to find all the great ways you can interact with us. Email, Twitter, subscribe links. We've got it all on AndroidAuthority.com, except, of course, for Jimmy and David's contact information. And if you want to contact them, you can reach out to them on Twitter. Jimmy is at Jimmy Westenberg, spelled exactly like it sounds, and I can't spell it because it's way too long. And Durvid Imel, that's DURVIDIMEL. Once again, I thank you for listening, and I hope you will tune in again because we are your source for all things Android.